After an electric start post All-Star break, the Rockies have unfortunately come crashing back down to earth. And today we ask the question, are the Rockies still on pace for some bad history this year? We'll talk about all the bad stats that the Rockies have, all the bad records they have. And we talk about what the future of this ball club looks like. That's all coming up next on the DNVR Rockies podcast. What's up, everyone? Welcome in to the DNVR Rockies podcast presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code DNVR365 when you place a bet for $5. You can get $150 back in bonus bets. Welcome, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I apologize for the weird show schedule this week. This is actually going to be our only show of the week. So we had no show on Monday, had to take care of some stuff. No show on Friday because I'm actually heading out into the mountains to do some, get away from Rockies baseball for a little bit. So today's our only show. This is going to be our only show, and Spencer's going to be calling in because he's at home with his kid on babysitting duty. So Spencer, I believe I just heard him call in. We got Spencer live. We got him ready. There he is. What's up, Spence? Oh, Spence, I think you're muted. Oh, there he is. There he is.
Oh, is that better?
Yeah, we got you loud and clear now. You look like a broadcaster with your mic. I like that.
Yeah, I'm something, dude. This week has been treacherous for both of us.
Yeah, I know it really has. But I will say, I don't know if you remember, not too long ago, before the Rockies faced the one and only Paul Skeens, I made a bet that if Paul Skeens took the L against the Colorado Rockies, I would officially get a mullet. And I know I haven't seen you since this, and it's hard to tell on this camera, but we got the mullet.
It looks elite. I could already tell just from when I hopped in and just saw the front. Like, it looks so good.
Yeah, it's mullet season. Marissa, she wasn't repulsed by me when I came in this morning because I had my haircut at like 7:15 with my barber. He was also pumped, by the way. I walked in and was like, all right, I'm getting a mullet. And he was stoked. So he was very excited about it. Marissa didn't hate it. So I think that's a win in my book.
That is absolutely a win. And it looks so good. Now you're making me look like mine's coming out a little bit. And, I got the sides kind of cut. I cut my own hair, so I need to get down on that. It's been a little bit over a week or week and a half since I've done it, so I'm getting a little behind. But now that yours looks so good, you kind of look like Jordan Beck right now. You're giving me some Jordan Beck vibes.
So my barber is a Royals fan, and he was like, dude, you kind of have like Bobby Witt Jr. vibes. And I was like, I can take that. I'll take the Bobby Witt Jr. look. Yeah, Jordan Beck, Jordan Beck has another good mullet. I would say most of the Rockies have mullets. Does Jordan Beck have the best mullet on the Rockies?
Yeah, now that Charlie Blackmon's gone, I think it's just everybody. His mullet will live on in Rockies history for the end of time. But I think probably Beck right now. I mean, some of the really good hair guys from the Rockies have left. Justin Lawrence had some great hair. He's gone. I'm trying to think of if there's anybody else that has some good. Hunter Goodman kind of has some hair coming out of his hat but he always has the helmet on.
Yeah. I mean, Kyle Farmer has, they all have, the mullet haircut, but they're short. Like Arcia, same thing. He's got the little, kind of like mine, where it's just, a little bit of flow in the back. But it's not as much as we had with Charlie Blackmon. Although seeing Charlie Blackmon since then, without, mullet and beard and all of that, is definitely a jump scare. It's a little alarming when you see Charlie Blackmon without his full getup. But Jordan Beck. We'll talk a little more about Jordan Beck as the show goes on. We got to talk about Toglia. I see a couple people bringing up Michael Toglia in the comments. He is definitely going to be a topic of conversation today. But first topic for discussion: are the Rockies still on pace for history? And I guess I want to go beyond just are they still on pace for history? just the sheer question of, are the Rockies going to make history this year? Because I think the on pace thing is hard to gauge, because on one hand you look at it and you say, okay, the Rockies, the amount of wins that they need through the remainder of the season to avoid history is 11. And our good friend Scott in the chat, he's got the counter going on Twitter. 11 wins the Rockies need to avoid history. They have 49 games left. On paper, that looks so doable. And I did already see, I think it was Burge, say, they need an 8-game losing streak to get back on track. But if you look at the remainder of the schedule that the Rockies have, of the games and teams that they play for the remainder of their games, I actually don't know where you salvage 11 wins, or 12 wins, I should say, to at least, overcome that record. I think history is still on, although it's in jeopardy. I think it's still very much in play.
Yeah, when you look at the schedule and the teams that they have to play, I think that is like, whoa, winning one game against the Dodgers here or there, one game against the Cardinals, and they'll play the Padres and the Giants and the Diamondbacks, of course, a bunch of teams in the division the rest of the year. But when you look at the number and you look at, I think my numbers are correct here, but they're 8-8 since the break. Like if they play 400 ball, 450 ball the rest of the way, I mean, they're not even going to sniff that record. They'll win, 17 or 18 more games and finish well out of that White Sox record from last year, which I don't know. I'm torn. Like, we are literally covering what started to be the worst season in Rockies in baseball history. And so that was kind of had some lore to it, but now it's almost like they're winning games in a fun way, and they've changed. Like, it's completely changed the way they've played the last 2 weeks, essentially, compared to the beginning of the season, where they weren't hitting very well and the pitching was actually decent. Now the pitching has completely forgotten anything and everything they've learned from little league to the major leagues, and now the hitting is in place. So we've kind of flip-flopped how the season's gone. Still a lot of losing, but I really, even with my purple glasses off, I really don't believe that they're going to have the worst record in the history of the MLB. They're going to win 15 more games at least. They're going to catch a little hot streak. And a hot streak for the Rockies is like 2 games, 2 in a row, maybe 3. And they're gonna beat that, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I see. The funny thing is, though, I actually have no idea what to expect with this team. On one hand, you go and you play the Pirates, and you look like this completely different team, at least offensively, right? I mean, pitching is still terrible, but you look like a competent offense. I mean, they, came back down 9-0. And let's just be honest, the Pirates pitching is the best part of their entire team. Their offense is terrible, but their pitching is okay. And the Rockies, offense looks good against the Pirates. They were decent, before that against, the Cardinals, Twins. The Rockies put up 10 runs in one game against the Twins, right? So, like, there's been some moments where you look at their offense and you're like, okay, maybe things are turning around. And then you go and you watch them against the Blue Jays, who, I'll give the Blue Jays credit, are a damn good baseball team. I would actually say I think the Blue Jays have a good chance to go to the World Series this year with how good they're playing. With the way the Rockies are playing the last couple days, even with some pretty good lineups that Schaefer has brought out there, I don't know, man. I really don't know. I mean, you're going up after this Blue Jays series. You play the Diamondbacks, who are a good team, the Cardinals, who are iffy. You play the Diamondbacks again. Then you play the Dodgers, the Pirates, so that you could get a couple wins there against the Pirates, the Astros, the Cubs, the Giants, the Padres, the Dodgers, the Padres again. Like, that's a hell of a stretch of games. And yeah, you might steal a game or two out of some of those series that you don't expect to win. The Rockies might take one game against the Padres or one game against the Dodgers or something like that. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting, because I do still think there's a world in which they actually hit that loss record. But also, if you look at what the White Sox did, the White Sox already this season have eclipsed the amount of wins they had last year, and we still have 2 months of baseball left. So it still goes to show how bad this Colorado Rockies team has been all year long. When you look at that record, you're like, oh my God, it's hard to believe sometimes.
Yeah, when I was looking at the White Sox last year and just watching their games, and taking it in from a third party perspective, but also knowing that, in our company, we cover the White Sox and had some guys talking about it. And I was just thinking to myself, like, how do they do this? Like, how does this just, they show up every day and now we're in it and I get it. Like, I'm delusional. Let's start with that. We kind of know that from this podcast, and I'm definitely Rocky's purple glasses delusional guy. But like, they've just gotten absolutely demolished the last two games against a really good team in the Blue Jays. And I can't wait for the 110 game today to strap back up and see what happens. Like, it's just like, it's a true sickness. There is
It
no
is.
cure for it.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for the game today. I think they can go out and win. And I don't know where that comes from.
It's a drug. The Colorado Rockies baseball is a drug that has no benefits, all the side effects, and for some reason, you and I are still shooting up every single day. Like, give us more Rockies baseball. It's brutal. I want to change gears at some point, but I got to ask, because these last couple games, I mean, you just talked about how miserable these last couple games have been. It's a good team. Give credit to the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are good. What has pissed you personally off the most about watching these last two games? If you could point to one thing that has pissed you off more than anything else, vent about it.
So I vented a little bit on Twitter about it last night, and I think it still stands out. Like, the starting pitching is just so bad that it almost doesn't even affect me. I just hope that the Rockies can score 7 to 10 runs, especially at Coors Field in these games. But I think the little things like the base running and just the mental mistakes that the Rockies have made the last two games have stood out. But it's kind of been boiling up this entire year of getting picked off. I think they've been picked off 3 or 4 times in 2 games against the Blue Jays. Brenton Doyle stretching one out yesterday, trying to get a double when you kind of need base runners at that point. Like, I don't blame him for being aggressive. And honestly, a lot of this comes from being aggressive offensively from the Rockies on the base paths, which I don't mind. They still, Jordan Beck stole a base yesterday, but it just feels like it's kind of a greater thing of the whole season. Like, it just kind of boils down to a bunch of different things that they're not good at. But it feels like on the base paths, they're just sloppy. They're not, and people want to blame Warren Schaefer. He gets part of it for sure, but we both played baseball. What do you when the pitcher steps off, you step back, or when like, that's the things you learn when you're 7 years old.
Yeah.
And if you can't be, everybody wants to put it on a certain person, and it's definitely part the coaching and the managers. But at the same time, like, Orlando Arcia, dude, you've played in MLB for longer than half the world's been alive. Like, figure it out. You don't need to be getting picked off of second base. And they're also getting, like, sticking with the running and the base paths. Like, defensively, it feels like they can never throw anybody out. It feels like anybody that steals a base on them, it's just they're dropping the ball, the catcher's dropping the ball, or there's not a smooth transition, or it's a throw into center field. Like, just those little sloppy things. Like yesterday, the Doyle thing, just stretching it out into second base. Granted, he's being aggressive and he's a fast player and you want him to be aggressive, but at the same time, you're down 7-4 at that point, I believe. You just need base runners, and they got multiple base runners last night, and that's why I gave it half of an exciting loss. Half of an exciting loss was fun because they did come back and they had multiple chances with runners in scoring position. So you felt like they actually got us into a place where you feel like they're going to score those runs.
Bless you. Bless you.
Whoa. Excuse me, Paul.
He's getting way
Jesus
too worked up
Christ.
talking about this base running.
Yeah, I'm allergic to bad base running, apparently. But and then Cole Lefty here in the comments, the errors. See, the errors only affect me when it's like a Tovar doing it, or Beck's a little sloppy in left field. Like, if Orlando Arcia makes an error, or Kyle Farmer boots a ball, which I think he's done like 4 or 5 times in the last week, that doesn't, it annoys me, but he shouldn't be out there anyways, is my point.
There's people out there actively rooting for Arcia and Farmer to make as many errors as possible so that they can be booted from this baseball team in the near future. We'll talk about some of the veterans and their future on the Rockies as the show goes on. Base running is killing me, man. I've vented about this on the show before, and it wasn't even so much base running before. It was more, what's his name, Andy Gonzalez, the third base coach for the Rockies, not sending multiple players earlier in the season when it was like, a ball is hit to the warning track, guys rounding third, and he's got the stop sign up there like, no, we keep him at third. It's like, no, send the guy home. Let like be aggressive. Like I'm okay with getting thrown out if you're being aggressive, in certain circumstances. But yeah, some of those base running errors specifically are brutal. Also, I don't know if you saw this. Josh Naylor, who just got traded to the Mariners, has played 11 games so far in Seattle. He has 8 stolen bases. And if you know Josh Naylor, that's not a little guy. He's not some, little skinny Tyler Freeman or PCA who can go out there and steal 30 bases in a season. He's a big boy, and he has the most stolen bases in all of Major League Baseball across the last 11 games. He has more stolen bases than the entire Rockies team does over this last 11 games, and that's just him by himself. So Rockies came into this season expecting to be a good base running team. They are not. That needs to be improved upon in years to come. And yeah, that's a big one. I see Dinger's Burner in the chat also talking about the walks. It doesn't help when you give up 7+ walks every single game. Yeah, I agree, but I also kind of am with Spencer on this one. Like Rockies pitching, my expectations for the Rockies pitching is so low that I really don't get too worked up about it. Like I go into games like last night, Anthony Molina's on the mound, and we're sitting there in the press box talking amongst ourselves. The media is talking amongst ourselves, and we're literally jokingly placing bets on how many runs Molina gives up, right? And that's no disrespect to Anthony Molina. Poor guy has barely seen a big league roster, but that's the state of the Rockies, pitching rotation right now. That is a reflection of what the Rockies pitching has been like this entire season. And I don't think it's getting any better. So let's talk about it. I want to take our first break, but after the first break, we got to talk about where do the Rockies find pitching relief? What does the future of this starting rotation actually look like? Is it in the farm system? Are there starting pitchers in the farm system that can actually bring us some relief in the near future, or is it going to be guys that the Rockies have to go outside of the organization? We'll talk about the status of the starters coming up next. Well, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends right now over at Cake Mortgage, because Cake Mortgage has this really awesome thing. It's called the debt service coverage ratio. And debt service coverage ratio, it's a loan. They're designed for individuals who wish to invest in real estate. And I've talked about it a little bit on the show, but basically to kind of make this easy to understand, or at least hopefully make this easy to understand, when you go to buy a house, banks look for reliable income. They look for trustworthy income so that you can get approved for a home loan. Well, a lot of people, myself included, don't have traditional income. I'm a freelance broadcaster. Half of my income comes from, random broadcasts throughout the year. It's sometimes it's unstable. Sometimes I have good months. Sometimes I have lower months, right? It's tough to show banks consistent income. That's the same thing for contractors, freelancers, anyone that doesn't have that traditional 9-to-5 income. It's hard to get approved to go and get a loan to buy a house. Cake Mortgage, they really have changed the game when it comes to getting approved to buy a house. They pretty much take all of your non-traditional income and get that approved so that you can go out and buy a house. You can go get approved for investment income. They're incredible for real estate investors, self-employed, credit-worthy borrowers, or anyone who wants to scale a rental portfolio with a W-2 or without W-2s or tax returns. So if you have always dreamed about owning income property, or if you're building your real estate legacy, call 1-800-EAT-CAKE or head to the link in the description, because life's better with Cake. That's Cake Mortgage Corporation, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 1734623, licensed in Colorado by the Division of Real Estate. Terms and conditions apply. I also want to give some love to our friends over at Empire today, because it is summer, and with summer, it comes, home projects, house renovations, you do your floors, you do all of those kind of things. And I got to say, especially speaking from experience, when you go to replace your floors, it's one of the most challenging projects you can do in your home. And you got to make sure you do it right. I've gone into some places where, the floors have not been done correctly. And you could tell, you got to make sure, especially when things get cold in the winter, things get hot in the summer, that you have floors that are fit perfectly for your house, for your lifestyle. And Empire Today is incredible. They take care of all your flooring needs so that you have not only a floor that looks good, but a floor that's built to last. So be sure to check them out. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. And right now, DNVR listeners can receive a $350 discount when you use promo code DNVR. Yes, that is a $350 discount with code DNVR. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday/DNVR for details. All right. The state of the rotation. The Rockies starting pitchers have given up 7,755 home runs and runs in the last 5 games, it feels like. It's bad. And the first inning is a perfect example of that. Yesterday was actually the first day or first game in the last 7 games that the Rockies starting pitchers have not given up a run or more in the first inning. They broke that streak. They had 6 games in a row. They had given up a run in the first inning or more. And they broke that yesterday. Unfortunately, Anthony Molina went on to give up 5 home runs. The franchise record, I believe, was 6 home runs from Kyle Freeland back in the day, which is kind of crazy to think about. But what do you do with starting pitching? Because it's not getting any better. You got Senzatella, you got German Marquez, you've got Kyle Freeland, you've got, I don't know, what's going on with Ryan Feltner, you know, what's going on with Anthony Molina. Chase Dolander had a start yesterday. I mean, it's not good. The starting rotation does not look good. Spencer, do you have a solution for the Colorado Rockies starting rotation?
Score more runs. No, dude, it's bad. And if you're watching this podcast and video, you're obviously a Rockies fan, but if you're not and you're just stumbled upon this, it's so bad for the Rockies right now that Anthony Molina, who came up from AAA, I believe had upwards of 6 ERA, started last night. He got through the 5th, only allowing 3 runs. And I wanted to give this guy Cy Young votes. That's how bad it's been. Like, I'm not joking you. We've seen 9-run innings in the first. We saw it live at our Friday Rooftop Club last Friday. Every other game, it feels like it's 5-0 before you even blink an eye. Now they've come back from a few of those, but it doesn't erase the giant blemish that is the starting pitching. And really, I'm not too privy to all of the guys down in AAA. I see Sean Sullivan. There's a few guys, following Blake Street Banner. They tweet out a lot of the starts from the lower levels. And Brody Brecht, who's an Iowa kid, I love him.
Gabriel Hughes,
just because he's an Iowa kid. Gabriel Hughes. There's a few more kids that I think are worthy of getting starts here in September. But the real thing is obviously the guys that are up are not pitching well enough. But Marquez is hurt right now. Ryan Feltner just can't get back on the field. So you're starting, Tanner Gordon and Bradley Blaylock, who, as much as you love these guys, like they've had a few starts here and there where you're like, oh, maybe this guy will be good. And then it's kind of come back down to earth. And it's really been inflated since they got to these Coors Field series the last couple games. When they go back out on the road, not saying it's going to be any better, but, we're going to see a few more starts from guys where it's 4 or 5, 6 innings and 3 or less runs, which is not great. It's no Cy Young level pitching, but it's good enough for what the Rockies are right now. And I just don't see it getting any better with the current guys they have. I'd like to see some guys healthy, but it looks like we're in for another entirely lost season from Ryan Feltner, who started out actually decent. And to be honest, all the starters, when we were through the Rays series at the very beginning of the season, and even though they were losing almost every game, we're like, hey, the starters have something. Kyle Freeland had a good run of pitching. Senzatella had a decent run of pitching, like 2 or 3 starts, which is about as much as you can expect from him. German Marquez, right before he got hurt, and that start that he got hurt in was like, okay, we're going to trade this guy and get a couple of prospects out of it. And then it's kind of all just in this last week falling apart. So I'm crashing out on the pitching, but like you said, it's so expected right now that, especially at Coors Field, Blue Jays over 7.5 runs today is a bet for the Bet365 app for sure. Like they're just going to score runs. And maybe when they get out on the road and go to Arizona, I mean, Arizona lost Naylor and Suarez. So there's at least 2 massive bats that you don't have to face. But between the injuries, the guys getting called up that really aren't ready to be called up, they're being called up out of necessity, and just the hodgepodge of who's starting each night, and Kyle Freeland having a little injury or sickness in his last start and then gutting it out and then missing his start yesterday and will start today. It's just a giant cluster, you know what, and that's the only way to put it. There's no consistency on the mound from them, and there's no consistency with who's starting every single game. I mean, if you probably look at the last 25 games, so theoretically 5 starts per starter, I don't know if there's a single guy that's made every start in the last 5 rotation days. Gordon in, Blaylock in, Marquez out, Feltner's never been back up, Freeland's missed a start. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Yeah.
Senzatella sent down or injured his middle finger, which he's been giving the Rockies all year anyways. And just there's no consistency, whether they're on the mound or when they're actually starting. It's just a mess.
Yeah, Scott brings up a great question. He said the real question, is it a talent issue or is it possibly a coaching issue? I know a lot of people are saying coaching issue, and I'm not discounting the weight that bad coaching can take on a rotation. But I got to be honest, I think part of it is a talent issue, for sure. Maybe the coaching doesn't help. Maybe it makes it worse. And maybe that plays more into a role with some of the young guys like Chase Dolander, maybe Ryan Feltner trying to get back on the horse here, guys like that. Maybe the coaching plays more of a role into their experience. But Senzatella, it's a talent issue. German Marquez, although he's had some good starts and he's had moments, and you look at some of the stuff he's done, I think the talent, has shades of being what it used to be. He's not what he used to be. And I don't think he ever will get back to being even close to what he used to be. So I think that is a talent issue at this point in his career as well. Freeland too. I mean, you've got guys that I think have all peaked in their careers and are on the downhill slope, and they're just trying to salvage whatever is left in their careers, really, to wring out as much of that juice as they have left. And so I do think part of it is, I think more of it, in my opinion, is a talent issue. And then I think when you go beyond the talent, you have to look at drafting and developing, because the question that goes beyond, okay, this year's a loss. Next year's probably a loss too, right? I mean, we're not expecting to go to the playoffs anytime soon. The starting rotation, as it sits today, is never going to be successful, ever. I don't care if German Marquez comes back from injury and throws a couple really good starts. I don't care if, Kyle Freeland has a game or two where he looks like he used to be. This is not the rotation that gets you to the playoffs one day. So you have to look towards the future of the Sean Sullivans, the Gabriel Hughes, the Chase Dolanders. What's the next generation of Rockies pitchers that are going to bring you out of this mess that you find yourself in? And yes, we haven't seen some of those guys, so we can't actually judge whether or not they're going to stick at the big league level. But on paper, as of now, Chase Dolander was really the only guy that you thought, from a prospect perspective, that this guy's going to be a stud. This guy's going to be a star. You hope that Sean Sullivan is a good pitcher. You hope that Gabriel Hughes ends up being a good pitcher in your rotation. But Chase Dolander was supposed to be the star. And, the jury's still out on that one. But I can't help but feel a little nervous with the inability the Rockies have shown over the years, over the decades, to be able to draft and then develop good pitching. I just don't trust that they can manage their pitching rotation. I think this is going to be a situation where, let's say the Rockies offense figures it out one day. Like you said, maybe they're scoring 7 runs a game. They're averaging 7 runs a game. And you're like, all right, our offense is there. I think we're going to have the conversation of, we need to go out at a trade deadline or during an offseason and sign/bring in pitchers who have already developed, pitchers who have already found their groove, and bring those guys to Coors Field, as hard as that might be one day.
Yeah, and I think it's fair seeing a lot of the comments of coaching issue. Depends upon what kind of coaching issue you're talking about. If you're talking about their coaching and development from single A or wherever they started after they got drafted all the way up until this point, I'm not going to argue that point with you. But what brings me back to overall just the talent level, if you look at any of the Rockies, let's say 8 starters, that's including, the normal 5 of Gomber, Freeland, Senzatella. I know these guys are hurt. I'm just kind of making my point here is Gomber, Freeland, Senzatella, Marquez, and then now it's Tanner Gordon, it's Anthony Molina, it's Bradley Blaylock. Like any of those guys does any other team look at those guys and even think that that's higher than a 5th starter in our rotation? And the answer is no. And The only guy that maybe you could say that about right now in other franchises' eyes is probably Chase Dollander, who's down in AAA pitching right now and had some struggles, but you can see that there's talent there. With all of the other Rockies pitchers, I mean, Kyle Freeland, I love Kyle Freeland more than most people. And he is Mr. Rocky, and he grew up in Colorado and now pitches for the Rockies and got Cy Young votes one year. But call Kyle Freeland what he is. He's been a grinder his entire career. He's never been a big strikeout guy. None of the Rockies pitchers have really ever been big strikeout guys. Marquez kind of before he got Tommy John surgery, but none of these guys are big strikeout guys. And maybe that's the Rockies philosophy, and maybe that needs to change. Clearly, something needs to change with either the farm system or the guys they draft or the way they develop them. But when you look at any starter for the Rockies this year, other than Chase Dollander, does anything get you excited about them if you're another franchise? Yeah. No, it doesn't. And that's purely a talent issue. And I kind of had this argument on Twitter last night with somebody, but like, imagine somebody telling you to build a deck and they give you rotted out wood and old screws and no drill. That's kind of what Warren Schaefer and the Rockies are dealing with. And that's partially to blame on Bill Schmidt and the front office and the ownership for sure. But what they're doing day to day is they're doing the best with the guys they have. And those guys just flat out aren't good. It's not, they're not losing games by small margins of, oh, this play goes right. Like, they're just getting beat the hell down, especially on the mound. And then the hitters are trying to score, hit grand slams with nobody on base is where they're moving to. So it's really just a talent issue from the fact of, I can't look at one of the Rocky starters and say, yeah, that's a guy I'd want to start one game for us in a wild card playing game. Like, none of these guys give me any confidence.
Yeah, someone was saying in the press box yesterday, they were saying, like, they asked the question, is there a stopgap in this Rockies starting rotation? Is there a guy that you're like, hey, everyone else sucks, but this guy, when Chase Dollander starts, you're going to get something good. Paul Skeens is that guy for the Pirates, right? You're going to, you're going to be in the game when Paul Skeens is pitching, right? As long as your offense just holds their own, Paul Skeens is going to keep you in every single ball game he pitches in. That doesn't exist in Colorado, so it's tough. And you're right, like it's hard to blame coaching when you're not losing games in the margin of 1 or 2. Warren Schaefer actually was giving me shit the other day. I was in the dugout after that crazy comeback win the Rockies had just a few days ago against the Pirates, and I was talking about it with someone in the dugout, and I was talking about how just like crazy and shocking that was. And Warren came up behind me, and he was messing with me, but he patted me on the back, and he's like, "Come on, Christian, like, don't you have any faith? Like, have faith in us, man." And I'm like, I get it, and I understand where he's coming from, but my take on that is like, Shafe, it's your job to have faith. Like you are paid to believe every single time. You could be down 15-1. And it's your job to believe that your team has what it takes to come back and get back into that game. My job in the media, or whatever I want to call myself, is to look at the trends, to evaluate trends and stats and data and all of that kind of stuff. And the trends have shown me that you can't have faith in the Rockies, right? They've had better games recently, but this is a team that's still on pace to be one of the worst teams in the history of baseball. And pitching is by far the worst part of this team. So I wish I could say there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but until we start seeing some true growth within the farm system at the big league level, I don't have a lot of confidence in this pitching staff. So it's going to be a topic of conversation, I'm sure, for years as we hopefully turn the corner at some point here in the near future. But got to take our next break of the show. But after the break, we got to have another unfortunate conversation. What do the Rockies do with our big first baseman, Michael Toglia? They've made some moves recently that have put some doubt into Michael Tolia's future. What's the Rockies' plans with Michael Toglia? We'll talk about that coming up next. Well, folks, if you are heading out to the ballpark today to wrap up this home series before the off day, you got to use our friends over at Game Time. Game Time makes it easy to get tickets faster than ever and cheaper than ever as well. Because, we know Rockies tickets are pretty cheap, but you can get them even cheaper with the Game Time app. As you get closer and closer to first pitch, the tickets get cheaper. You know the deal. You know how it goes with Game Time. But I want to go even beyond, this baseball season. We got football just around the corner. I know Rockies are going to be competing, for for attention with our good friends over at the Broncos, over at Empower Field. I'm excited for this season, and I know tickets are going to be going quickly. If you're trying to go to Broncos games this year, use that Game Time app and try to get those tickets because they are going to be going quickly, and they're also going to be expensive. So Game Time, it's the best place to get any tickets for anything that you want to go, whether you're going to the theater or you're going to watch your favorite sporting event. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code DNVR for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Also want to give some love to our friends over at Coors Light because Coors Light is the official light beer of DNVR and of the Colorado Rockies. And I got to say, there's nothing better than going and watching the Rockies come back from down 9-0 in the first inning with an ice cold, refreshing Coors Light. We were up at the rooftop. I know some of you guys made the trip up there to see us. If you didn't, we are going to be having another rooftop club here later in August. So, maybe the Rockies can come up with another historic comeback to go with that. But we were up there drinking some nice cold Coors Lights up on the rooftop, watched the Rockies just have the most insane game I've ever seen in my life. The vibes could not have been higher. And I got to say, it was nice to drink some nice cold, refreshing Coors Light because I don't normally get to drink when I'm going to Rockies games since I'm usually working. But for that game, I made the exception. I was enjoying some nice, refreshing beer. So make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instant Cart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company in Golden, Colorado. All right, Big Mike, the topic of conversation today. I got to say, I'm a little nervous that we might not see Big Mike in a Colorado Rockies uniform again. What does the future hold for our good friend of the show? I had such high expectations for him. And as Scott says in the chat, Toglia had a sombrero last night. He was 0 with some Ks. I just don't know if this is something he can turn the corner from. Strikeouts are a huge issue for him. Spence, what do the Rockies do with Michael Toglia?
I think you got to at least let him try to figure it out in AAA the rest of this year. Even though, he's a solid defensive first baseman, it's not like obviously he's struggling mightily at the plate, strikes out almost 40% of his at-bats, has the highest K rate in the MLB when he's up there.
In the history of Major League Baseball. Yeah,
there you go. Just all-time season from him, including the entire Rockies organization, really. But you got to leave him in AAA, I think, just till the rest of this year and kind of figure out what you got to do with him by next spring training. I think, you're trying to piece together the rest of this season. Obviously, Warming Bernabel has been so good and played a decent first base, made a few really good plays over there. I mean, there's nothing – I haven't seen anything from watching all the games that I'm like, oh, you got to move this guy over to his normal position at third. I mean, we've seen Orlando Arcia games at first base this year, which it can't get any worse than that.
We saw Austin Nola at first yesterday.
Yeah, so having Bernabel there is fine for now. And then I forget the guy they signed from the Rangers, but basically a lot of the comments I saw about him were the cool part about signing him is you're not signing necessarily a known commodity. You're signing somebody that's still not a major leaguer, a full-time major leaguer. So that excites me more than signing a guy that's played first base in the league for 10 years and you kind of know what he is and just hope that he can recreate some magic at Coors. This guy, he is somebody that's just up in the air. You're probably going to play him at first base. And there's still a few injuries to work through for the Rockies and the Ryan Ritters and figure out who plays where in the infield. But right now you can't take Bernabel's bat out of the lineup. And Toglia did have a little stretch of good baseball right when he came up from AAA again, but I don't envision him coming up again this year. You have to figure something out at the AAA level, and I don't care if we see 17 highlights in a row from the isotopes of Toglia hitting home runs. Like, I am not going to be clamoring to call him back up, provided there's not just another rash of injuries and players that can't play, and you literally need to fill a ball club at the major league level. So I think you probably let him stay in AAA the rest of this year. You bring him into spring training with what's going to appear to be an open first baseman's job. And you say, hey, did you fix anything from last year? Because they basically handed him the job this year. He earned the job from his performance towards the end of 2024 season. But they went into spring training with him being the first baseman, and he kind of let that job slip, and Warming Bernabel's just taken it from him. Essentially, he's not a normal first baseman by trade, but you got to get that bat in the lineup, and he's been one of the best hitters since he got called up in the history of Major League Baseball for his first 10 games. So you got to keep that guy up there and let Toglia try to figure it out. I'm telling you, Lefty says they need a clear development plan. Start with just making him hit right-handed. I'm telling you, let's just start there. Let him hit right-handed all the time and go from there. But joking aside, I don't think it's over for him, but I think he needs to either earn the job through his performance at AAA the rest of this year and then a good spring training, or just a good spring training of they're not going to go out and sign a established major league first baseman. We know that. They're going to have some changes in the infield with Rymack not just being guaranteed a spot at third base. And second base is going to be probably an open competition as well, to be honest. So the only position you can lock in the infield in 2026 is going to be Ezekiel Tovar. So there's a lot of movement, guys that can play both corners and figure it out from there. But I don't think that if I had to guess right now, we'll never see him in a Rockies uniform again.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, we had such high hopes for him coming into this year. I had went out on record and said, hey, he's going to be a guy in line for a Gold Glove by the end of the season. He's going to have a 30 home run year. And oh man, we missed the mark on that, along with plenty of other predictions we had this year. But that one hurt the most, I think, just because we had thought that, this was a guy that was, as Lefty in the chat says, it was going to be a pillar to this franchise, that was going to be a pillar that you could build upon, along with Tovar and Doyle and company, that you could build upon to hopefully rebuild in the next coming years. But I don't see him coming up here in the remainder of this late summer, early fall. And I do think they hold on to him. They'll hold on to him into spring training and let him try to earn it back. But as I think there was a comment, I think it was Drew in the chat just a little bit ago, said that it was Drew. It sounds like he's pretty resistant to making adjustments to his swing/approach. He's pretty much told me that when we were asking about, the torpedo bat before the season started. And I had asked him and he was like, yeah, I don't really like making changes, and he was talking about the torpedo bat, but that plays and everything else we've heard. So interesting stuff. The Rockies did go out and sign the guy you were talking about, Spence, Blaine Krim from the Texas Rangers, who it's a funny side story here for a quick second. I remember Blaine Krim because when I started out, I graduated college. Marissa and I, we moved to Spokane, Washington, and I got a job as the PA announcer for the Spokane Indians. And at the time, this was back in 2019, the Spokane Indians were the single A team for the Texas Rangers before they got switched over to be in the Rockies farm system. So they were still a part of the Texas Rangers. Blaine Krim was actually a player. He was a first baseman on the Spokane Indians back in 2019 when I was the PA announcer. And I remember him because I had a friend who worked for one of the stations, I'll just say, that covered the Spokane Indians. She ended up going on a couple dates with Blaine Krim while he was playing for the Spokane Indians, which I thought might have been a little bit of a conflict of interest. She's covering the team and goes on a couple dates with him during the season, of course. But so I totally remember him. And I was actually talking to Marissa about this because I brought up his name and she was like, oh my God, that's who went on dates with so-and-so when we were in Spokane. So a little connection there for Blaine Krim. But I have no idea what to expect from Mr. Krim. He's played with Texas for most of his career. I think, like you said, he's just a floater. He's going to be, he's going to be there if the Rockies need him. I personally don't expect them to see. I don't expect us to see him in a Rockies uniform, but you never know. If someone gets hurt, like you said, and maybe they don't want to bring Michael Toglia back up, you might see Blaine Krim, starting in a Rockies uniform. It's a good segue into our next topic, and maybe we'll hit our last break before we get into our next topic. It feels like there's a black hole at third base right now. Every single day I look at the roster, I look at the lineup, and it's Arcia, it's Farmer. I just don't know how to feel. And on one hand, I recognize the idea that the Rockies, it's a young team. There is some value in having some vets, balancing out some of the youth on the team. But I think we need to have that conversation. Why are the Rockies so insistent on playing their veterans, even when those vets are struggling, even when those vets kind of suck? So we got to take our last break of the show. After the break, though, we have the veteran conversation. And which veteran do the Rockies move on from first in the offseason? We'll have that conversation coming up in just a moment. Well, I want to give some love to our friends right now over at Raising Cane's, because Raising Cane's has got you covered if you are heading out on the road to go on a summer road trip. And I got to say, I am actually going on the road today to go on a summer road trip. I'm going up into the mountains to do a little backcountry fishing. My wife is coming along with me for the first time this summer. So she's probably going to be miserable. I'm going to be having the time of my life. I'm sure the Rockies will, make all the breaking news moves in the world while I am, out of service for 24 hours. But Raising Cane's, I've already got it on my itinerary. We're stopping at Raising Cane's on our way out of town because Raising Cane's is the perfect road trip food. You cannot go wrong with some just incredible chicken fingers. I mean, they've got the best sauce known to man. I mean, you cannot go wrong with Cane's sauce. They're crispy crinkle cut fries. I mean, I'm just picturing, in a couple hours, I'm going to be sitting in a car. There's going to be a Raising Cane's bag in between my wife and I. She's going to be stealing all the fries from me, but I'm going to be stealing all the cane sauce. And it's going to be a great start to our summer road trip. So go get some Cane's. You don't want to miss out. Get your order today at Cane's and keep the road trip going. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love. Also want to give some love to our friends over at Shady Rays because we're talking about road trip season. Well, if you're going out into the backcountry, you're going hiking, fishing, backpacking, or maybe just stepping outside for any reason, you got to have some sunglasses that go well with our Colorado sun. And Shady Rays has you covered. They are incredible. And I've talked about them before because I've got 3 pairs of Shady Rays. I've got my driving Shady Rays that I have in my car that are ready to go at a moment's notice when I'm getting in the car, and I put on my Shady Rays, good to go. I've got my fishing Shady Rays with the polarized lenses so that I can see those little fishies swimming around. Feel like Charlie Blackmon out there just bringing in some 16-inch fish up in the mountains. And I've also got my daily wears, my daily shades that I like to rock. Shady Rays is perfect for every single occasion. If you're going to a Rockies game, they've got purple tinted glasses so that you can look the part when you're watching the Rockies lose 15-1. You can't go wrong with them. And they have a deal exclusively for our listeners. Shady Rays is giving out their best deal this season. Head to shadyrays.com. Use code DNVR for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right. What do you do at third base? That is a big old circle of death. We're going to talk circle of trust here soon. It's the circle of death at third base. The Rockies continue to have seemingly good lineups. I mean, you look at the lineup and you're like, okay, 1 through 8, solid. Feel good about everything, at least for our standards. And then you see the number 9 hitter, and it's Orlando Arcia, Kyle Farmer, or Tyro Estrada even, although I had more optimism on Tyro as a vet playing on the Rockies earlier this year. His name is starting to get tossed into there. I'll start with this, Spence. We know that the Rockies are going to move on from at least one of the veterans here in this offseason. Who's the first to go?
I think Orlando Arcia is the first to go. Signed late, mid-season signing after he was DFA'd, has had a moment or two of really exciting baseball, saved the Rockies a game in Milwaukee, hit a game-tying home run in the 9th. They went on to win in extra innings, and we remember every win because there's been 30 of them this year. Very easy to remember them all. They finally won a month's worth of games and it's August, so that's good. But I think Arcia is the first one they move on from, and I wouldn't be surprised if they move on from Kyle Farmer as well. And even though he's been a journeyman as well, let Mickey Moniak be the vet on the team. And I really do think that the Rockies are young, but now going into next year, there's not necessarily vets, and maybe they'll go out and sign one. Maybe Chris Bryant reappears out of the magic of dust and becomes the vet. But in all reality, they're going to have 4 or 5 guys that the Becks, the Tovars, the Doyles, Hunter Goodman, another year under his belt, that guys that are not necessarily coming up to the major leagues, but they've had a season or two under their belt. So they'll be in that middle age range of like, all right, maybe we have a prospect or two that makes the team out of spring training next year. And those are the young guys. And then you have a few older guys mixed in throughout the lineup. But I wouldn't be surprised if they moved on from all of them. And I see some comments talking about Austin Nola being gone. The biggest concern with the Austin Nola situation, and much like the black hole at third base, is it's somebody else's fault. And the reason Austin Nola is a Rocky and is playing games for us is because Drew Romo just apparently is just not good enough to play in the major leagues and not ready. And the reason that we have a black hole or a question mark at third base right now is because Warming Bernabel should be playing third base because Michael Toglia shouldn't be in fucking AAA in August. And so really it's like it's the Rockies' problems are caused by certain things that are then, making another part of the infield or another part of their roster weak because these guys are not stepping up to the plate, pardon the pun on that. But if Michael Toglia was still our first baseman, was hitting 240 or 230, which is not a lot to ask for, and not striking out at an incredibly high rate, then you're probably playing Bernabel at third base and thinking maybe this is the third baseman of the future. And it sounds like Kyle Karros is getting close. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in September. And we forgot about, Ryan Ritter getting hurt on the bunt. He should be back soon-ish. He hasn't started throwing yet, but got some stitches and things like that.
He threw yesterday. Yesterday was his first throwing session.
Oh, okay, good. So we're on the right track. So maybe early September we get another month of Ritter and see what he's about. But there's a lot of guys that just really don't have a position other than Ezequiel Tovar in the infield. Like I don't know if we could guess right now at what the starting 2026 infield will look like on April or March, whatever, when the Rockies open away, as they always do, starting next year. And I think the only one we could even remotely get correct is Tovar and maybe Bernabel, but who knows where he plays. Like that, mm-hmm. There's just such a mess everywhere with certain positions that you feel like the outfield right now at this moment of this podcast is in a good spot. Jordan Beck starts every day in left field. Bretton Doyle starts every day in center field. Mickey Moniak starts every day in right field, or DHs, or Tyler Freeman starts there or DHs. Like those are the four guys that you have their bats in the lineup every day. Doyle's starting to hit the shit out of the ball, which is great to see. And they're Doyle's obviously elite defensively. Beck is mediocre, kind of sloppy, and then Moniak and Freeman are serviceable in right field. But your outfield's pretty good, and your infield's just a giant question mark. And then Schaefer, one of the things that I do have, not against him, but one of the things I kind of dock him for is how little he plays Hunter Goodman. And you don't want to burn him out, but at the same time, that makes you have to play somebody else at catcher. And nobody else seems to want to step up and be that catcher. And thank God they got rid of Jacob Stalling so they could let Hunter Goodman bud into the all-star that he's become this year. But there's just a lot of question marks all throughout the infield other than at shortstop and Ezequiel Tovar.
Yeah, you did forget one name in there. He's the third catcher for the Colorado Rockies, Braxton Fulford, also in that conversation as well. I agree with the Nola take for Dinger's Burner because you have Braxton Fulford. So yes, although Drew Romo is not playing well, he was hurt as Drew says in the chat. You got Braxton, you've got Hunter. I think that's enough. I agree with you. I don't think you should see Nola for much longer here. I think Arcia is going to probably be. I think both Arcia and Farmer are both going to be gone. What I'm worried about, and the Rockies seem to do this every single year. The Rockies say, and maybe this was a Bud Black thing too, so maybe it'll change this upcoming year with Warren Schaefer as of now being at the helm of the managerial spot and possibly there being a new GM involved. The Rockies always they always say, we're going through this youth movement, we're calling up all these guys, it's a young team, and it's true. But then you go and you sign a bunch of veterans and you play those veterans over the majority of some of the youth players that should be getting those reps. And I'm not saying calling guys up before they're ready. I'm saying the guys who are already ready, but just need more experience. Adael Amador is a perfect example. Like he got called up, a couple weeks ago, played really well, and they sent him back down, when Tyro Estrada got ready. And look, I get it. Tyro's fine, but I really do have a hard time with the weight that this franchise puts on veterans. And with the fact that we now no longer have Ryan McMahon in the clubhouse, we might not have Herman Marquez next year in the clubhouse. Like you are losing some more veterans that you're not going to have back next year. I'm really worried that this offseason, the Rockies are going to go out and sign 3 or 4 more Orlando Arcias or Kyle Farmers or Owen Millers and just be like, hey, well, we're rebuilding, so we need to just supplement with some depth. And I just I cannot stand this whole depth conversation. You've got depth in your minor league system. That's what you're trying to figure out. That is what you're trying to build towards, because the depth that you're talking about right now is on pace to lose 130 games. So, like, I'm not saying go out and sign, Kyle Schwarber next year. Like, I'm not saying go pay someone to be this star when you're not even close to being a competitive team. But I also just think you have to still value the playing time for some of these young guys, and seeing Orlando Arcia, seeing Kyle Farmer out there when you could be seeing guys like Aaron Schunk, Adael Amador, who are both playing really, really well in the minors right now, getting some reps at the big league level in a toss-away season. I just have a hard time with that. So I hope I'm proved wrong, but that is my big concern going into this offseason. I do think we see Kyle Karros, by the way, in September. I do think that'll be a positive. Hopefully when Ryan Ritter's back, he gets pushed into second base as well. And we have a Warming Bernabel, Ryan Ritter, Ezekiel Tovar, and Kyle Karros infield. That would make me very happy by the end of this season. But we got a couple minutes left before this show wraps up. We got to do our Circle of Trust as we do on our normal Monday show, which is now Wednesday show. Circle of Trust. Who is in your Circle of Trust today, Spencer?
Circle of Trust right now it's a lot of the hitters, to be honest. Like Hunter Goodman's still firmly in the Circle of Trust. Ezekiel Tovar is making a reappearance in the Circle of Trust. The guy's hitting the absolute seams off the baseball. Warming Bernabel is the pole that holds the current Rockies Circle of Trust up from the center. Mickey Moniak's still on there. There's a lot of guys from the offensive end that are on there. And then in an entirely separate planet, in a separate universe, the Rockies pitching staff, everybody other than maybe Jimmy Herget is on this entirely different universe of so far away from the Circle of Trust that they can't even describe it's real. That's where we're at.
Vodnik's got an honorable mention, Dinger's Burner says it too. Vodnik with the honorable mention. He's in the conversation, but I agree. I actually, although again, Dinger's Burner's putting Beck in there, I'm not fully there yet on Beck. Beck has had some very good moments and he's been playing good baseball as of late, but I just, if we're being critical on the Circle of Trust being the most prestigious award that a Rocky could be given out of the DNVR Rockies podcast in the 2025 season, I don't know if Beck has quite done enough consistently to get into that. It's got to be Tyler. It's got to be Hunter. Bernabel is close. Bernabel's in it. I mean, he hasn't given me any reason to not believe that yet. Tovar is in it. Vodnik is an honorable mention. I don't know if he's there yet for me. Moniak is kind of in the Beck category. He's had good moments, but he's not. The consistency isn't there. But Beck is still on the fringe. I got to be a little critical here. Beck isn't quite there yet.
His dinger off Paul Skeens didn't push him over the edge of the circle. And mind you,
I need to see more.
This is the DNVR Rockies Circle of Trust, which is the worst Twitter account for the Rockies on the entire X, the everything app.
Dude, I honestly was kind of impressed that we made that list. Voted worst fan account, in Colorado Rockies baseball. I'll take it. We'll take it. Scott, I just need to see a little more consistency from Beck. I'm not saying that he's not doing good. I'm not saying he's not, a good player. I think he's a building player that will get there. He'll be in our Circle of Trust one day, but I'm not ready for him yet. And to be honest, the Circle of Trust is kind of crowded right now. We've got like 4 or 5 guys in there.
Yeah, anybody that's hitting right now, it seems like I'm pretty confident in the Rockies lineup 1 through 8 almost every single day at the plate. But another thing on Beck that I kind of mentioned earlier, but he's not going to be Carlos Gonzalez in left field or win a Gold Glove anytime soon. But he he is a little sloppy out there. There's some routes that he takes that just aren't good. He doesn't field the baseball, which sometimes it doesn't matter, right? But there's times where if you don't field the baseball cleanly, that run ends up scoring instead of being stopped at third. So there's little things that he needs to improve on, but he's definitely a guy that, like, I want Jordan Beck to start in left field for the next 7 to 10 years.
Oh, 100%.
For the Colorado Rockies. I mean, the Christian Saez lookalike Jordan Beck needs to start in center field. And he's one of the guys that does bring some swag. That is another thing that he like boosts him up from a morale perspective, is like, I feel like when he got hit yesterday by Barrios, he was like not having it. And we need some fire on this team, because while other guys are really good, the Tovars, the Tyler Freemans, the Hunter Goodmans, you don't see a ton of fire out of them. Hunter did snap his bat over his knee the other day and then homered the next at bat, which I appreciate that kind of fire. But the Rockies don't have a lot of swag. And to be a good baseball team, you got to have a mix of talent and some of that swag. And I think Jordan Beck does bring that. So I'm looking forward to seeing him in a Rockies uniform for a long time.
I agree. I'm all in on the Beck train. Just not circle of trust worthy yet. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. And this is, like I said, our only show of the week, because we're doing life stuff this week. So only show of the week. We are going to be making up our second show of the week at a later date. So it will be made up at some point. We'll do a 3-week pod, maybe when the Rockies are close to that historic number. But as always, thank you guys again. Spencer, appreciate you calling in from home and hanging out with us. Dion always does the best, pressing the buttons to make us look good. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next time. This has been the DNVR Rockies podcast, presented by Bet365.
We all silly like the mayor.